Today's video is going to discuss chapter 3-4, dividing rational numbers. So dividing rational numbers is very similar to multiplying, and what we're going to do is end up taking a fraction, and the first thing we got to do is be able to figure out the multiplicative inverse. And so think about the word inverse, kind of means to flip. So what I'm going to do is take the numerator, make it the denominator becomes the numerator, and so this is the same as 16 over 7. Right? So essentially just flip that fraction. This one I need to first change into an improper fraction, so it's 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. So this is 13 over 2. Obviously this is still negative. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it, and when I flip it, it becomes 2 over 13, and is still a negative number. Right? So that's my multiplicative inverse there. Now the reason why you need to know the multiplicative inverse is because if we take a problem like this one, and we're going to try to divide fractions, what I need to be able to do is change this to a multiplication sign. So a lot of people have learned this trick where you flip one fraction and it becomes multiplication. And so this is 1/9, and I'm going to change this to multiplication, and then I have to take the multiplicative inverse of the second fraction. Now the reason that works, and if you read the paragraph before the video, we talk about 8 divided by 2 is the same as 8 times 1/2. And so you took the 2, you flipped it, so it was 2 over 1 and now is 1/2. And so that's exactly what we're doing here. Now, one way would be to multiply across. Ideally, we're starting to become a little bit more comfortable with this idea of cross-canceling. And so I can see that these two have something in common. They have a 3 in common. And so I can divide this by 3 and divide this by 3, and I end up with 4 over 15. That would be my final answer. Now the question is, what happens when they are mixed numbers? And so it's going to be the same thing. What I got to do is first change them into improper fractions. So this is going to be 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 14 over 3. This is still negative. Divided by 9 times 3 is 27, plus 1 is 28 over 9. Now, the next step is going to be to do the multiplicative inverse and change this to multiplication. So this is still negative 14 over 3. Remember, you can't touch the first fraction. This becomes multiplication. And I got to flip this fraction, so this is now 9 over 28. And then at this point, I can start to do some cross-canceling. And so I know that these two have a 3 in common, so I can divide out 3. And then these have a bunch of numbers in common. They have a 2 in common, a 7 in common. They also have a 14 in common. So I'm going to divide 14 by 14, and that gives me a 1. 28 divided by 14 gives me a 2. When I multiply across, 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. Now, a lot of people leave your answer there. It's actually not the correct answer, because remember, this is negative. Let's start up here. Negative divided by positive, which means my final answer, my quotient, has to be negative. So this has to be a negative answer. So this is negative 3 over 2. All right, so now let's do some algebra. What happens when you get this problem? 5 over 3ab divided by 15 over abc. Keep in mind now that these are just numbers, right? So these letters have the same properties as numbers, and so this is going to be 5 over 3ab. I'm going to change this to multiplication, which means I need to flip this fraction, so it is now a, b, c over 15. Now remember, I'm multiplying across, but first I can start to try to do some cross-canceling. And so if you think about what these have in common, 5 and 15 have a 5 in common, so I divide 5 by 5 and I get 1. 15 divided by 5 gives me 3. Now, these two have an a in common, so if I divide this by a and divide this by a, this would become a divided by a is 1. A divided by a is 1. Remember, any number divided by itself is 1. 7 divided by 7 is 1. 20 divided by 20 is 1. So a divided by a is 1. And then the same thing with b. B divided by b is 1. B divided by b is 1. So I got 1 times 1 times 1 times c, means I have a c on top. And then I have 3 times 1 times 1 times 3, means I have a 9 on the bottom. So my final answer should be C over 9. Now the question is it positive or negative? Positive divided by positive gives me a positive answer. So my answer is C over 9. All right, that's it for this section. Please don't forget to answer the questions on the bottom of the page. Thank you for watching the video, and I'll see you in class.